Hello everyone, I'm Richard, the CEO and co-founder of Adiona, and right now our technology is powering millions of efficient, lowest carbon deliveries for some of the world's biggest brands. And I thought I'd do something a little bit different, which is have a little video overview before I get into it. So let's see if this works. Bingo. Thank you.
Our world is changing at an incredible pace. Our cities are growing, our economies are expanding, and our technology is advancing faster than ever before. But as we push forward, we must remember to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Sustainability is about finding solutions that not only benefit us now, but also benefit our planet and the generations to come. It's about minimizing waste, reducing our carbon footprint, and protecting our natural resources. Adiona creates solutions to bring sustainability into the logistics industry using artificial intelligence, advanced technology, and a keen understanding of our customers and their customers. Adiona's powerful last-mile delivery route planning and optimization software has powered over 25 million sustainable global deliveries for some of the world's biggest brands, preventing the emission of many tons of greenhouse gases. Our unique technology allows transporters to adopt electric vehicles faster by identifying opportunities for electrification and creating simulations and network designs for more sustainable delivery methods. Our customers also use it to power bicycle and walking deliveries and other hybrid networks. Our applications and APIs can be integrated into almost any IT stack and can be fully customized. From diagnostic AI and emissions measurements to our daily delivery management and route optimization platform to our advanced future fleet simulator, Adiona gives you the tools you need to deliver sustainably and at the lowest cost to your business.
Good, I'm glad that worked. So last mile delivery and last mile transport is over half of the total cost of a product's transport. And it's also one of the most significant and fastest growing sources of carbon emission. And unfortunately, what we find is in the commercial fleet space, and it's good to go after Tim with this, prevent a different side of this problem. Electrification of commercial fleets has lagged way behind that in the consumer vehicle sector, which is unfortunate because a commercial vehicle will travel on average 3 times longer per day and up to 10 times more distance per day. So we really should be racing to electrify these commercial fleets with haste. But transport and logistics is low tech. We all know that. And that's how companies like Amazon, Alibaba, Walmart have scooped up huge market share in the last mile delivery space. Amazon has nearly 20% of the last mile delivery market in the US now, including non-Amazon products. And the reason is because they're a technology company first, and they're a delivery company second. So they have an army of engineers and researchers that have created the best in breed technology for efficient, cheap, very effective and accurate deliveries. And so have we. So I'm a third-time founder with a background in engineering and commercializing IP, and I'm committed to sustainability and leaving the world better than I found it. My co-founder is a PhD in AI optimization mathematics from the University of New South Wales, and he's also an incredibly practical and pragmatic developer committed to building great cloud-based optimization solutions. And we've got an amazing team that also includes some amazing investors already and advisors. Including some SaaS legends from here in Australia and America, and also some great investors from overseas. So Third Sphere, one of the leading sustainability VCs in the US, led our pre-seed round. Telstra joined that here in Australia, and recently KPMG brought us into their Future Tech program to introduce us to their clients. So how does it work? It's pretty simple. Our API consumes thousands and thousands of delivery orders, requirements, vehicle specifications, regardless of what type of fleet they're running. And that's constantly loaded into our engine. We then provide optimized delivery routes to those companies. We consolidate and aggregate them and push them out into whatever fleet choices they're using. And that is then pushed into the last mile applications, mobile phone apps, back into ERP systems, wherever else it needs to go. It's a very API first solution with then ecosystem of web apps that then support that solution. The differentiation is that it's really built for enterprise. So this isn't intended for people running a couple of vans in the city. This is intended for the world's biggest post and parcel organizations and private manufacturers. So it's intended to scale for any size and type of fleet, including multimodal fleets. So whether that's traditional ICE vehicles that are converting over to electric vehicles or fuel cell, but also down to the level of sidewalk vehicles, walkers, drones, and bicycles, very common for us. Another differentiator is we use only premium information, GIS information. What I mean by that is that this industry, if you know anything about it, is plagued with really old data, old mapping data based on open source collection, whereas there's a much more rich ecosystem of data that we use provided by companies like TomTom and HereMaps, which gives our customers a competitive edge and makes it much more financially interesting to them. And we're experts in machine learning and developing AI. Our core team is developing some amazing advancements in how we use all of this data that we've collected over 25 million deliveries to cycle that back into our engine and provide better service, better outcomes for the customers and their customers. So far, we've prevented the emission of 800 tons of greenhouse gases equivalent across 25 million deliveries, which we're really, really excited about. Companies like Coca-Cola Europe Pacific Partners here in Australia, were able to reduce their average on-road time by 48% and their emissions by 36%, which is quite effective. And you know, the business end of it has to be really solid. And so you look at companies like Home Delivery Services Australia, one of the biggest cold chain delivery companies here in Australia, and they've been able to increase their customer satisfaction and on-time and full delivery rates to 99% plus, and save a lot of time in doing what they do. And it also gives them a path to low emissions vehicles in the future once they get onto our platform, which is really important. So we've got some great brands that are on the platform now, but what we're focusing on is our expansion into North America. We've got some pilots going there right now, some really big brands. And one of the key methods of doing that is partnering with the electric vehicle ecosystem. So the OEMs that are building the vans and trucks are bundling our software into their hardware ecosystem because they don't make software, they don't know how to make SaaS. They certainly don't know how to make delivery management platforms. So by having something bespoke for that low emissions vehicle ecosystem that includes all of the constraints and factors that they need to consider and charging infrastructure, it's a really great match. So far, we have grown 70% year on year last year. We're anticipating 110% this year. And I think it's very important to us that this be a sustainable business and that it be a business that's really long haul for the future. So we've built in technology from the ground up that allows us to achieve 90% margin today, cost of goods margin. And we've got about a 60K contract value average with very sticky long-term customers. It's a huge market, we all know that, but in terms of the focus, we are doubling down on places where we've already achieved some go-to-market, some product market fit, namely parcels and FMCG, and those are places that have a serious path to electrification as well. So even with a small share of those markets globally, we could be achieving $100 million ARR in just the next few years. But you'll also see that there's a huge number of verticals that we can also expand this technology into, which we've had a lot of inbound interest, but right now the focus is on delivering in the places that we know. But let's think big. Let's not think about just route optimization and vehicle planning and electrification. These problems are systemic across the entire supply chain. And a lot of the algorithms and techniques that we've created are applicable upstream all the way to manufacturing. And by applying them across every link of the supply chain ecosystem and optimizing it from end to end, we can actually drive a compound improvement, both in terms of sustainability, but also just resource utilization and savings, economic impact for our customers as well. And our differentiation right now in market, we call it the 3 S's. It's speed, scale, and savings. And we need to hit these before a fleet operator will even think about electrification. They're very, a lot of these projects and pilots for electrifying vans and trucks fall over when it gets to procurement because there is not a solid financial basis on which they can see 10 to 20 years out that it's going to succeed. And we're helping them solve that by having a rapid simulation engine that also dovetails directly into delivery execution. So they can get onto our platform, have a large-scale simulation of how their multimodal and hybrid fleets will work together, achieve economic results, and they present that as business case. And then they go out and execute the deliveries. So that presents a really good value for them to achieve savings at scale and do it very quickly. It's a SaaS product, so we don't make any hardware at all. We have APIs that we deliver basically on a consumption basis. And so you can think of it like a mobile phone plan based on the number of locations they visit. And it's scaled based on how big the organization is. So very large organizations doing a lot of deliveries or pickups every day pay down in the cents per delivery range. We also incentivize long-term contracts, and we offer bonuses for referrals to other customers. That partnership with the EV OEMs that I mentioned earlier is really critical for us. But beyond them, it's also partnering with the other aligned software providers, so transportation management solutions providers, and also the telematics companies. So that's part of our partnership with Telstra, is with their telematics portfolio. And if you're in Sydney next month, first week of April, I invite you to come and see me talk at the Raising the Bar Sydney event about the future of electrification of urban fleets. And you can see a similar talk at conferences in the US in May and September as we focus on that market. Thought leadership is really a big priority for us right now. And also, networking and with the other wider ecosystem around here. So we're gearing up for a capital raise in later this year, and we invite you, if you would like to come and talk to us about that. We're looking for investors interested in this space that can offer more than capital and can really help to achieve our scale into North America. So that's our main focus, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm going to throw to the audience for questions. I have a couple of my own, but before we do that. Yes, at the back.
Hi, thanks. Great presentation. A couple of questions relate to the same thing. Is with the AI, it works really well on trained data from the past. How do you integrate in weather predictions or events that are kind of outside of the normal? So there's protests or something in a city. How does your system aid the customer in being able to change route planning for those type of eventualities?
It's a great question. I love that question. We get it a lot, and I'll give you a really interesting example. So the answer, the bottom line up front, is that it's highly overrated to give real-time traffic predictions and weather predictions and things like that. These organizations know most of that stuff anyway at the human level. The AI adds very little value to that. But I'll tell you what does add a heap of value, which is historical traffic information. So by using historical traffic information at a road link by road link speed limit basis, that takes their on-time in full DIFOT prediction from in the mid-80s for a typical big organization, 85% on-time in full, to explain that, up to 99% by just using the historical information. Yes, you can get from 99% to 100% using real-time traffic information, and it is expensive. No one is willing to pay the cost, and to be honest, when they get to 99%, they don't care as much anymore.
Next question.
In terms of competitors or barriers to entry, what do you see as your competitive market?
Yeah, it's a great question. The old guard is the SAPs and Oracles of the world that have these really large monolithic transport management systems that do have optimization in them, right? So we do have to compete with that ecosystem to some extent, and it's very difficult to disrupt or pull somebody off of SAP TMS. It's almost impossible. But that's why we went with an API first type of approach, because we can help them integrate into, some of our customers are SAP customers, and we integrate into that ecosystem and can then slowly land and expand from the inside. So that's one side, is the legacy ERP and TMS providers. They definitely are not customer-led when it comes to building product, right? So you go into any of those organizations and they can do nothing but complain about how it doesn't actually solve their problems, but they're stuck on it. So that's another reason that we're very product-led. Like, we have such great relationships with our customers, and we built the entire product based on what they wanted. And then finally, there is an ecosystem of new AI companies and ML companies that are building similar products, or at least they sound similar on the tin. But again, I don't think that they have the real-world expertise of knowing what it is that these organizations need at an enterprise level and how to drive a business case to the future. They're very immature-ish, they're very ambitious and young. I think we're kind of in the right inflection point in the middle, where we have enough enterprise acumen to deal with big companies and build what they need, but also do it with a really sustainable SaaS business model that isn't going to be a consultancy.
Yeah, thanks, Brian from Endeavour Environmental. Could you talk about the emissions voided a bit, both in terms of how you're measuring it and also kind of how you're driving it or incentivizing it?
Sorry, can you just say that again? The voided?
The emissions reduction or the emissions avoided that I think you said.
Avoided, yeah.
About 7 million, was it?
800 tons that we measured so far.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I was just looking at your website then. Yeah, could you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, so there's the traditional diesel fleets that you can very much right off the top measure efficiency based on the reduced number of kilometers that they run, doing the same amount of work, right? And then there's the second level of transitioning to other vehicle types or other hub and spoke models. So an example is a customer of ours that has a network of convenience stores, over 1,000 convenience stores. They use those as parcel hubs. Now, the traditional business model would be person in a van coming from out west, delivering in the metro via petrol vans. But by leveraging the footprint of this real estate, they can turn them into parcel hubs. And out of those parcel hubs, they then deploy cargo bikes, e-bikes, and walkers with hockey bags. And you can then measure the transfer of what would have been done by a petrol vehicle and the emissions contributed by that versus doing the same amount of work in a low emissions mode. So those are the range of things that we look at.
I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So thank you for elaborating on that, on the question from Brian. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion to date in terms of the ethical considerations, in terms of AIs and how they trained data sets, etc. Can you talk a little bit about issues that you've faced and or how you've integrated those considerations in how you develop your product further?
Also, great question, and one that we get occasionally, especially when talking with organizations where people are very protective of their jobs. And so I'll talk about it at the coalface of where we actually engage with people who are doing route planning and logistics planning. And you get two mindsets often. One, which is, please do something about this because I hate doing it, and it's not something a human should really be doing or is good at. And then the second, which is, well, I don't particularly like it, but it's my job. And what we found is that none of our customers have ever reduced headcount by implementing us. And that's kind of counterintuitive, but the reason is because they're usually redeployed to higher value things. These people are experts at what they do. They know their customers. And so by freeing them up using AI to take on some of the more menial tasks, they can deal with protests, traffic, bad weather, breakdowns, things that aren't foreseen, that they actually can add a lot of value to. So it's early days in that, and if you extrapolate that out over the future, you have to be, I guess, a bit open-minded, the way that people were looking at Excel back in the 70s, thinking that all accountants were going to be put out of jobs. The economy is going to transition, and what I can tell you is two things. Companies don't put people out of work based on what we do today, and we've never met anybody who actually likes doing what we replace.
Great, thank you. It sounds like you've heard the voice of the customer as well as the ecosystem. So,
Try.
yeah, let's all thank Richard. Just watch your head.